Here we go. Hello, and welcome back to I've Known You Too Long. My guest today is someone who started this show. He was on the very first episode of I've Known You Too Long, and then he showed up like 6 months later to do a check-in catch-up episode, and I guess we're going to keep doing that. We're going to follow along with this process because he's back today to do another check-in. It's Greg Bennick.
I've still known you too long.
I've known you too longer.
I've known you too longer. It's kind of like YOLO forever. I've known you too longer.
Wait, YOLO forever?
Yeah, you're only young once forever.
That's like vampires.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So, this is February 15th. We're recording this on February 15th. I have no idea what day it'll actually make it onto the site.
Yeah.
As soon as possible.
I'm still stuck on YOLO. And I said you're only young once, but you only live once. You only live once forever. I've known you too longer.
Okay. Yes.
Okay.
It's the 15th. The very first episode was posted on Nobody's Knows. Like when I actually had it set up where it would go through iTunes and you could get the show online on February 16th, 2015.
Really? So this is like a year anniversary?
Yes.
That's so cool.
Now you had been up on our show had been up on YouTube prior to that while I was still figuring out all the technical stuff.
I remember that, yeah.
You know, that's like pre-order stuff.
It is like pre-order
or whatever. Advanced
cool.
Viewing.
I'm so excited for you because so many people listen to and enjoy and like your podcast, and they talk about, people have talked to me about my episode, but they've definitely talked to me about your podcast and about other episodes that they've liked, and people were excited about different guests and whatnot, and the fact that you're doing it. It's very cool.
You were doing this to me in the first episode. Stop being nice.
Well, here's the thing. I'm often not nice to you, Dave. I've spent a considerable amount of time deliberately telling people around the world that you must die and giving them many suggestions for how that can happen.
It's confusing to people.
Especially people for whom English isn't their primary language. Like when I'm in the Czech Republic or Hungary and I'm telling people about this person named Dave Larson who has to die by spear, they just don't fully understand.
Look, if some whack job Eastern Bloc...
You are the Larson of Dave.
Exactly.
I am here.
It's going to be like Terminator.
Exactly.
They're going to show up in the Seattle area. They're going to get a phone book. They'll find one.
Yep.
And they're going to go through the pages and they're going to get to the Larson section, and there'll be 12 of us.
Yep.
And so they'll just go down, and it's America, so they'll just go to a gun shop and buy right over the counter like Schwarzenegger does in Terminator, and they'll just go down executing all of Dave Larson's.
Dave Larson, I'll be back once forever.
I'll be back once forever. Oh God. Okay, so we're gonna try. This isn't gonna be a full feature-length episode, but we are going to try to do a mix of serious and fun. Like I definitely want it to cover both bases, and it's usually not hard with you.
Okay.
So not 100% sure where to start. So I will just start with, where were you tonight? Where did you come from?
I was emceeing the Pacific Northwest chapter of the Grammy Awards, their live telecast. Broadcast from LA, as the Grammy Awards are, but it was broadcast to the Experience Music Project, to the Sky Church venue at the Experience Music Project, and all the members of the Pacific Northwest chapter were there to watch the Grammys, and I was emceeing this telecast. So I was, just talking to people about the Grammys and just facilitating the evening as it went on. As
you were like getting up and announcing what was going to happen next?
Kind of, yeah, that kind of thing. And then, giving away some prizes and things like that just for the people who were there.
But you weren't juggling?
God, no. No, there's been a fundamental mental shift away from juggling in the past year, most certainly. And that doesn't mean I don't juggle. I find it entertaining and enjoyable as kind of an art. But there's definitely been a shift away from Greg Bennick juggler to Greg Bennick other things in the last year.
Okay, well, this sounds a little more serious, so we'll stay in the serious for the first part of the episode.
And I like that you equate juggling with seriousness.
It was the stepping away from the juggling, and you're doing an MC job for the Experience Music Project for the Grammys.
Right.
You're dressed up. I mean, you look real nice.
Thank you very much. People can't see that I'm wearing nice shoes and skinny jeans, and I'm fashionable. I'm a fashionable guy sometimes, Dave.
This is like Northwest dressed up. This is how you would do an event, a high-paid event in Seattle.
This is me being very, very fashionable and highly dressed. Yeah.
So what are the reasons that you've moved away from...
There's a couple things. On a real basic level, I had a very serious hand injury last October.
I definitely want to talk about... Is it October?
Yeah, it was October 2nd. Yeah, October 2nd.
I had no idea it was that far back.
Yeah, so October 2nd, my hands were severely lacerated by broken glass. And that, of course, brought an immediate and abrupt end to all things hand-related.
No, this was right before you guys were going to play a show at Gilman with Burn.
Yeah, this was
going to be Charles' last U.S.
show. Exactly. So it was literally a week beforehand. And after the injury, I was in a cast from fingertip to elbow for months. And I went in to the hand surgeon, and I was so hopeful. And I said, listen, my band has this show in 6 days, and it's kind of crazy and punk rock style. And is there any chance that I'd be able to play this? The look on his face was like, you are the dumbest person for even asking such a dumb, stupid, dumb question. And I just stopped talking.
So you didn't know how badly you were hurt.
I knew because, I had lost all mobility basically in my hand and quite a bit of sensation because of some nerve injury that happened. I knew that it was bad. I mean, I was seeing, I knew it was bad, but I wanted to hold on to hope that, I remember we played with By the Grace of God in Florida, and, I remember seeing Circle Jerks, both of whom had singers with really serious injuries, a separated shoulder and a broken leg, and still play the show. I wanted to be that guy. And the hand surgeon was like, not a chance in the world. No one can touch your hand. No one can come near your hand. No one can do anything relating to your hand. No. And I was like, okay. So it was a bummer. It was definitely a bummer. But, in terms of on a personal level, it meant me not juggling for a while as I was doing constant physical therapy once the cast came off. But that really triggered something in me. And I'll tell you just very briefly what happened. Years ago when I was only juggling and I decided I wanted to be a speaker, it was really because one too many people said, you're a really good speaker. And finally, one too many people said that, and I was like, okay. And I started to brand myself as a keynote speaker and going out and doing these keynote speaking gigs. Well, in the past bunch of months, one too many people, and there have been many, have said, I don't really think of you as a juggler. Like, what's with the juggling? Like, you do so many things. Like, I would never describe you as a juggler. One too many people said that. And finally, I just one day listened, and I thought, yeah, the juggling is fun and quirky, and it's a way to hook people, with, of interest at times. And I don't want to give it up. It's all based on, what my hand can and can't do. But still, it just made me think like, there's so many more things I want to be doing. Writing books, speaking, training people about how to communicate more effectively and just writing lyrics and just doing other things that are unjuggling related.
I think people that know you know that you could, if you lost your arms, you would find a way to do something and be effective.
See, I appreciate that. And there was a moment where my friend...
But are you the only person that doesn't know that?
There is a little note. There's notes all over and where I have a standing desk, right? So I'm at my laptop at a standing desk. The wall is covered with notes. All the walls of my loft covered with notes and little things that people have said. And one of the things smack right in the middle. I was on the phone with my mom about 2 years ago, and I was telling her about all these things that were happening, and Between Earth and Sky this, and podcast that, and travel this, and spoken word that. And I got to the end of what I said, and she said to me, Gregory, the shame of all this is that you doubt yourself. Because she hears from me all the time. My mom and I are very close, and she hears from me all the time, me going, yeah, I don't know, God, I'm thinking about doing this thing. I'm not sure if it's going to work. And she hears that from me often without me even realizing that I'm doubting myself. And her comment, the shame of all this is that you doubt yourself. I wrote that and stuck it right in the middle of the wall so as to remind myself in moments of self-doubt or in moments of like, yeah, but I've been juggling since I was 13. I need this thing. I can't possibly give it up the way people think. I can't possibly give up my job. I can't possibly give up this shitty relationship. I can't possibly make any substantive change in my life. All those doubts, whenever they're in my head, I look on the wall. The shame of all this is that you doubt yourself. And I just think this is an unnecessary thing for me to hold on to this doubt like it's a lifeline. So when one too many people said what they said about juggling, I just totally reframed the whole shenanigans in my mind. And I contacted somebody who has redesigned gregbennick.com, and it's not online yet. I mean, it's still the old website now, but the new gregbennick.com won't have even a moment of juggling, no mention of it at all. Yeah, because I mean, it's like that's not what I want to leave the world. I don't want to leave the world the greatest juggler who's ever lived.
And then you just got to hope it's not like when you go see the band and then they only play stuff off their new album.
Well, and here's the thing. It doesn't mean that if anybody going to gregbennick.com looking for me is looking for either their friend or their contemporary or their peer, Greg Bennick. Anyone who's going to my website looking for the juggler, they can go find that from a speakers bureau somewhere. They can inquire at their local speakers bureau. Hey, can you get this guy, Greg Bennick? The bureau will call me. Hey, still doing the juggling thing? Fine. But anyone who's a peer and a contemporary and a friend, I don't want them to go to the site and see juggling. I want them to go to the site and see humanitarian work and me working on like authoring a book on something that's going to, be substantial and transform people, and, 100 for Haiti and spoken word. That's who I am. Like, the juggling is something that I do. You're not going to say, oh yeah, my friend Greg Bennick, like he's this Rubik's Cube chess playing coin collector. Let me tell you, who gives a crap? It's like, these are like hobbies, These are hobbies. Like
but juggler has been more than a hobby.
Absolutely.
I mean,
absolutely.
Lots of people in the world, when they refer to you amongst friends, they say, oh, the juggler.
That is mostly people who are around early to mid 90s, admittedly.
Sure, yes.
But lots of people know that I juggle, and that's fine. I just don't want that to be the identity that I hang my hat on to my grave. It's just, I've been holding on to it realistically because I'm scared to give it up for fear of what might come next. And isn't that ultimately, I mean, that's a problem that's been around forever. And some listener will gladly, hopefully correct me on this. But, when Nietzsche said God is dead, I've always taken that as a message that, or a question, like, if God was to be dead, what do we do then? With what do we fill the space created when the one thing we hold on to more than any other dies? What happens then? So Nietzsche's question wasn't, what do we do without religion, but what do you do in the space created by the lack of religion? So what does Greg Bennick do?
What if the world doesn't end when the prediction promises it's going to?
What
if
do?
The year 2000 goes by?
What do you do?
And we're still here.
Yep. So my question to myself is, what does Greg Bennick do when the one thing he's held on to as this center point of his identity, this juggling thing that he's been doing since age 12, what happens when I put that totally aside? What does Greg Bennick continue to exist? Does he not? Like, why am I referring to myself in the third person? These are major questions. But you get the point, right? And I think that's a valid question for any of us. Why do we hold on to our stress? What happens when we let go of our stress? Can we continue on in the void created by lack of stress or lack of pain or lack of painful memory that we've held on to? Can we continue? And what does our life look like? That's a far more fascinating question for me than, where will I juggle next? That is the least interesting possible question I could be asking when all these other opportunities for new and exciting questions that have unsure answers are before me.
And it's just basically just a bonus that you kept your fingers in.
I guess that's one way of looking at it. Yeah. So yeah, I do have all my fingers and, have developed a new outlook on life. And there you go. Praise God.
Praise the dead guy.
I guess, what do you do? Right? Yeah. What do you do? It's all metaphors all the way around. Like, all of religion. It blows my mind recently. The more I think about it, the more it blows my mind.
Wait, okay. So that's interesting. Are you saying it blows your mind because you're considering it with new eyes? You're considering religion from a new point of view?
I'll tell you this. No, but after my injury, when I started thinking about, what would it have taken to take me out of the game? Okay, when I say severe lacerations to my hand, without going into excruciating detail, there's no denying that my hand was very severely damaged. So people with severe damages from cut glass sometimes bleed to death. I didn't. Both my hands had the potential for equal damage, yet my left hand, my dominant hand, was unaffected. Like, that to me blows my mind, right? There are things about my injury I don't want to get into that, if they were just slightly different, could have been catastrophically worse. And it was the first time in my life that I ever said, I don't believe in God or religion. That's just a thing. but I understand why people believe in miracles. I understand why they do, even though I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, it's because the, divine God of beauty shone down on me on a Wednesday, or some ridiculousness. But it was the first time I ever went, whoa, I get why people make that jump, right?
Right.
So in terms of contemplating religion, no, I'm not contemplating, becoming religious, but just thinking about religion in new ways. Like, it suddenly becomes very obvious to me why somebody in the face of something catastrophic would make the jump to something soothing, like a miracle. Oh, it's a miracle. Or just thinking about, Christianity, or thinking about the history of different religions and whatnot. And starting to wonder, what do these stories and these images represent to people historically? Put yourself in that time. What do these stories represent to people who were around 2,000 years ago? It's just, in the theater, it's
and then why should they be the basis for our law now?
Why should they be? And it's, in the theater.
Oh, well, you said it different than I did.
No, I know, but you're onto it. But it's like in the theater, it's dramaturgy, right? So like, why this play at this time for this audience in this city, in this theater? You ask these questions, and then the director can take that information and say, oh, that's why we're doing Romeo and Juliet in 2016. It makes sense now that this dramaturgical analysis has been done, right? So that's kind of what I've been doing, with thinking about, religion, or thinking about my life, but more thinking about the religion, like, why the story of a guy nailed to a vertical and horizontal piece of wood 2,000 years ago. What did that signify at the time to these people who were trying to explain the trauma and terror of their own lives? I'm trying to wrap my head around some of that stuff sometimes, because I've been thinking about my reality in a totally new way because of the change to my physical self. I mean, my injury was severe enough that literally the structure of my hand changed.
And this is new stuff that never occurred to you throughout all the stuff that you did with producing Flight from Death, and it's just a different perspective on it. Different perspective. Like for example, like there was a night where I walked out of I went to the emergency room multiple times after the injury for different things, infections and just complications and awfulness. And there was one night where I walked out of the emergency room and I heard church bells, and I thought, that's of interest. I'm going to go follow this sound and see where it goes. So I walked across Capitol Hill, and there was a church that was having an event, and there was church bells ringing, and there's all these people walking into the church. And I thought, you know what? I have nothing else to do. I've just gotten out of the emergency room. I'm out of my mind right now with like surgical, medical, bright lights, people screaming craziness. I'm going to walk into this church and see what happens. Okay. So I walk in the church. I sit down in one of the pews. I'm by myself. There's people around, and there's a service going on. And as people around me start singing and they start, the praying and the whole deal, I'm looking at it as an outsider in their world. But what struck me all of a sudden, as we were just talking about a few moments ago, was that these songs had a transcendent quality. You listen to the songs and you feel mentally elevated. And I thought, this is the manifestation of people who are suffering and how they transcend. They create these songs, they engage in these songs, they sing these songs, and all of a sudden they get a sense that they are transcendent or elevated above their pain. But Greg, you've seen that before.
100% all the time. But never had I sat in a religious service and thought to myself, this is exactly what this is, right? This is why this exists.
We all go to the same place as people. As humans.
We could look at any hardcore show, right?
That's exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. Like the hardcore show, it's like, what is more transcendent than literally jumping into the air above the crowd and not hitting the ground? Like, that's a fucking metaphor. So
it's a miracle.
It's a goddamn miracle. So you jump into the air and you don't hit the ground. Like, this is like, this is the stuff of legend. I mean, like, when I was a teenager, I remember I was part, and I'm now going off on a freaking tangent, but I was a part of this.
Well, we allow that.
I was part of this group that studied spirituality and femininity. It was me at age 17 and all of these 40 and 50-year-olds who were met at this like new age center when I was in high school. And we used to talk about menstruation. We used to talk about the gender roles and all this stuff that 17-year-olds are usually bypassing in order to drink beer and get crazy. And I remember having these conversations with these women in the group about the metaphor of menstruation, what it signifies, and trying to understand from them the significance, right? And I remember listening to this one woman saying, like, the nature of a creature who can repeatedly bleed and not die destroys men, like absolutely destroys men, meaning men cannot fathom on a fundamental level the nature of a creature who bleeds repeatedly and does not die.
Right, because that's also a sexist joke
100
from the other perspective.
100%. But let's, aside from like sexist jokes and bullshit, like the fundamental creaturely level of man as non-experiencer of that looks at that and goes, that's impossible. That makes no sense, right? So all of a sudden this, you start going through your life thinking like, holy shit, like this event that is happening has such deeper meaning to me because I don't understand it. I will never fully understand it. I'm not part of it as it is, right? Yet all of a sudden you get this bit of insight and you're like, oh my God, this is so much deeper and means so much more on a fundamental level than just, oh, it's a period, get over it, right? It's so much deeper and more intense than that. Same deal with the church experience. I walk into that church and I'm like, on one level, it's a bunch of people in robes and white shit, and they're dancing around and they're holding gold things and they're spinning the smoking thing and they're singing. But that's not what they're doing. They're trying to transcend their pain in any possible way. And all of a sudden I was like, I understand, even if I don't agree with this is a piece of theater to me. I understand why it exists. And same damn thing with hardcore. Like, God damn it. Like, the idea that we jump off the stage again and again and don't hit the ground, that is transcendent. It is metaphorical. It is significant. That is in part why we're uplifted, that we scream and we come together. And it's like, honestly, I want to write this ethnographic exploration of hardcore.
Well, listen,
when I'm not going to do it because it'd just be
when you're at a fantastic hardcore show, and for a lot of people, if you're a fan of Greg's band Trial, if you're at a really phenomenal Trial show and things are just going, you've seen the photos, you know what I'm talking about, or if you've been at one of these shows, there's a feeling there. You don't just walk down the street or go to work in the morning. You can't just make that feeling happen. There has to be a collective group of people excited and expressing. And it's a vibration and it's an emotion and you can't conjure it from nothing. I think unless you're an absolute crazy person.
Right.
There probably are people that feel that way all the time and it probably makes their life unlivable.
Yep.
But in that moment, it's like this amazing cathartic thing and it's, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I found the same thing with my injury, meaning that, in the midst of this very temporal, like this is my physicality, it is inescapable that my hand connected to Greg, connected to me is injured, that I found moments of transcendence amidst that, like ways that I was thinking about myself in new ways, or ways that I was appreciative of the slightest return to mobility or the slightest lessening of pain became this like transcendent place that I was entering. It was honestly, I don't know how else to say it, but it was almost like it was like a spiritual experience between me and my hand as I got my physicality back, reframing it in a new way. It just made me think about all these different things in new ways. Now, granted, like your question, is this the first time you've ever thought about this? Obviously not, because we're at hardcore shows and it's not like we watch and go, oh, look, jumping girl. Oh, look, singing along guy. And That's as deep as it goes.
It's not like it's a constant analysis. It's not, this is like this.
Yeah.
Although for me, sometimes it is.
So meaning
in life, because I've gotten to a point where I almost feel like most of my life is collecting experiences to then compare and contrast for writing or for,
okay.
I look at everything as a potential source.
I could totally understand that.
So it's, yeah, I'll definitely, my brain is always looking for the way to connect A to B and say, this is like this thing I don't understand. Now I maybe can understand it from another point of view because I can relate it to a thing in my own life or my own experience.
Mm-hmm. I see that. I worry sometimes when I start to analyze too much that I'm losing my authenticity amidst the analysis. And what I mean is, if you're analyzing the hardcore show so much for what it signifies, and I know I just got done like going off on a, tangent on hardcore and what it signifies, but if you're analyzing it too much, it's almost like you're taking yourself out of the game. Like there was the Trial tour in Europe in 2011. I wrote every day what I said on stage, because the set was the same every day, but I challenged myself to say different things every day and have them be sincere. And I wrote it all down. I wanted to write a book, and I might, who knows, called Incomplete, Damaged, and Imperfect, 30 Days on the Road with Trial. And having it be, or forget trial, have it just 30 days on the road singing hardcore, whatever. Because my exploration was, how does my approach to the same idea change day after day? It does. It has to. If we did this interview 20 days in a row, we'd come up with different things. So why wouldn't the song, even though it's written with the same intention, mean something different to me based on the conditions of the day I was singing it? So I started writing all those things down. What was interesting was that there were some times where I was looking so hard to figure out what it was that was different that day, or what I wanted to say differently that day, that I lost my authenticity. I lost my sincerity, because I started thinking, what's going to be the thing that has the effect in order to document the thing that I said that had the effect?
How do I force myself to be different when you're not always different every day?
You're not always different every day. But then a more authentic approach would be, I'm feeling like I felt yesterday. That then is the thing to talk about, rather than trying to create something new. So the reason I got to that, based on what you said, is, we have the potential, I think, to lose authenticity through overanalysis sometimes, when we're trying so hard to see the event that's happening and what it signifies, rather than just participating in the damn event.
Right.
I'm guilty of that all the time. So I'm both sides. I could have just walked into the church and been like, cool songs, bro, I'm out, but instead I sat there thinking, like, wow, what does this, mean? And it wasn't even thinking about it that led me to that realization. It was just kind of letting it happen, I guess. So go with the flow.
So I guess what you're saying is, you're not always different the same way every day forever.
That's
YOLO.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. What's the acronym there? You're not always different every day
the same
way forever. Yeah, I mean,
and then YOLO. What's that?
United it's with YOLO.
United States.
Yeah,
okay,
United it's with YOLO. You're not always different every day in the same way forever.
I just
YOLO.
like to. I mean, just so people can kind of sum it up and understand what you're saying.
You nailed it. It's if YOLO.
When you were talking about, especially when you were talking about your hand there at the end, it made me think, well, this will be a perfect place to seg right into The Walking Dead.
Dude.
Which is what I was hoping to do.
Dude. Last night's episode of The Walking Dead.
We have to say...
No spoilers.
Oh, no. We're going to spoil the fuck out of it. So just listen. If you haven't seen the mid-season premiere of The Walking Dead that was on Valentine's Day 2016... spoiler alert, you're not safe from this point forward. And we're also going to talk about anything that's happened up to this point. So this is where you may well lose some things. So I don't think there's any major spoilers that really would give anything away.
Okay.
But we need to be able to talk about it. That's the thing. Because I think it's awesome, because I love a show like this.
You think the episode's awesome?
Oh, I love the whole show.
Me too.
I think that the show is phenomenal. I think it's amazing that that's the number one show on television.
Incredible.
Not the number one show in a time slot or on a network. The number one show on television is about zombies.
Now, I had this conversation last week with Megan, with my girlfriend, because she says that she didn't want to watch Walking Dead. She had no interest in watching Walking Dead. And she said because it was just zombie culture, it's just zombies. Okay? And I had to explain to her, I'm like, The Walking Dead is the contemporary representation of the lineage of zombies that started with Romero, with Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead, Day of the Dead, and the movies that followed. Greg Nicotero, who was on his team on Day of the Dead doing makeup, has now taken over from Tom Savini, and it is his makeup and his makeup direction which has led to The Walking Dead existing. It's like, this is like the child, or at the most distant way. Like
but then you merge that visual stuff with the storytelling of the creator of, what is his name?
The creator meaning George Romero, or the
Walking Dead comic series that the show
I can't remember his name.
Based on.
I can't remember his name. But
come on, Robert.
Yeah. The guy.
Forgive us. But yeah, so it's not, it's like multiple people in the field kind of coming together perfectly.
100%. It's all the other stuff is the zombie culture silliness, Pride and Prejudice and zombie, blah, 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 blah. You know, this is the real deal. Like this is it.
But you are involved in many very real things, and you think constantly and talk about really lofty stuff. that's arguably important for humans.
Okay.
But you also love The Walking Dead.
Love it.
And it's important to you.
Absolutely.
And I don't think those things are disconnected.
Absolutely not.
And I think that's valuable. And I think it's awesome because it's also, I get to also just have the joy of enjoying this thing with you.
Yeah.
Because last night's episode was unreal.
Unbelievable. Good. I didn't breathe for an hour. And
sometimes that show's bad.
Absolutely.
Even when it's bad, I still like it.
Me too.
But when it's good like that,
it's so good.
Yeah, and they came right out of the gate, literally blowing me away, like when they blew away those dudes in the beginning of the episode.
I was so happy about it. So happy about it. And, to your point, just as an aside, like, I see a direct connection between loving The Walking Dead and thinking lofty thoughts because, you have to have both. I mentioned before, why is it that people connect to the idea of a man nailed between a vertical piece of wood and a horizontal piece of wood? I might have mentioned this on the last podcast with you. I can't remember. But the whole idea of Between Earth and Sky, which is my other band, is this idea of being crucified between a horizontal earth representing piece of wood and a vertical sky representing piece of wood. The entire image of Jesus on the cross is a metaphor for our existence. We are trapped between the earth, which is going to bury us, and the sky, which is our aspirations and inspirations and emotions that form the foundation of our dreams and our desires. That is very, elevatory. It's vertical. The horizontal being the earth. We are literally crucified between earth and sky. That is a metaphor. It is a metaphor. It's a metaphor. Okay. That said, thinking about lofty stuff all day long cannot just be the thing you do. You have to be grounded in reality. And not to make a silly joke, but you can't just juggle all day long without stuff hitting the ground. So, in one of the projects...
Oh, we allow silly jokes
good.
On my podcasts.
Well, one of the projects I'm working on right now is I'm making a 15-minute short film about the last hours of Ernest Becker, cultural anthropologist who wrote about death and dying and our perspectives on it and the effect it has on us. When he was on his deathbed, he recorded an interview with a man, and it was recorded on cassettes. And I, in the last year, actually, unearthed the original cassettes. I found the original cassettes of that interview. And in playing them for a filmmaker friend of mine in LA, we were just like, oh my God, there has to be something done about this. Long story short, the film is going to be about how we live and how we die. And in 15 minutes, using the audio from these interview tapes, we're going to try to capture the essence of what we're supposed to be doing with our death and with our life. That's lofty, okay? But it's also rooted in death. So The Walking Dead, it's like there's a part of it, like we can just say it's just a TV show. It's a confrontation with ideas that we don't want to think about. We don't want to think about being dead. We don't want to be thinking about tearing somebody to pieces with our teeth and eating them because we're totally detached from the experience.
And
it's brutal.
We are emotionally connected to people who are constantly possibly going to die.
And
lots of characters that have died that we've cared deeply about. And now they even know the ones we really care about, and they're toying with our emotions. I mean, how many times is Glenn going to get cornered by zombies?
Because they are all trying to stay alive, which is what we are doing as well. Every single day. I tried to stay alive the whole way here. I pulled over to eat pad thai because I didn't want to eat and drive at the same time and die. I don't want to text and drive because I don't want to text, and say, Dave, I'm almost there, and die. We're constantly making choices in order to try to stay alive. We do this all the time.
There's something more to it too. There's a fantasy life. Like there's a fantasy, because a lot of people who love zombie stuff kind of wish that they could have the experience themselves
of being a zombie,
alive in a zombie world.
We talk about it. I mean,
because everybody has the what would you do?
Yeah, what would you do?
Yeah.
But I think that what I was going to say was that we, meaning collective fans and friends of The Walking Dead, can talk about it, but, there are varying degrees. Like some people dream of it and they want it to be their reality. I love thinking about it, though. Like when I'm...
But it simplifies life.
Yeah, it does.
It makes, in a way, it makes everything make more sense. It's just far more dangerous.
Meaning if there was an apocalypse of zombies.
Suddenly... If there was an apocalypse of zombies and you were surviving the way the people are in The Walking Dead.
Let us surmise for one moment that a zombie apocalypse has occurred in the time we've been recording this podcast. And your partner barges through the door to devour us.
Oh, that's too bad.
Well, let's just say that this is true because currently she's in the other room. She's on her iPad.
I assume Michael Ann will live.
Okay, but let's assume that Michael Ann does not live because your next door neighbor has chomped her leg.
Okay.
So she barges in.
Mm-hmm.
The question becomes, what do we do with what we've got here? Do we try to, strangle her with the microphone cord, or do I take her out with the botch CD? I'm not sure. Or do you have, you've got a knife. How convenient. It works. Yeah, I'm glad you have that. Do you have that just in case Michael Ann comes in?
No, this is just one of my various just in case knives that I always have.
Great. So you've taken it to another level.
Remember that day when someone dropped a knife in the pit when Trial was playing? And then you were like, someone dropped the knife. And then you were kind of like, who brought a knife to a hardcore show? And I was thinking, sure glad that's not one of the 2 knives I have on me, because then Greg would be making fun of me. It's not like having a gun at a hardcore show.
No, but I do remember
a knife
that.
is a tool. It is literally a sharp thing, which is what tool makers do as a basic initial thing to become a human,
Oh, boy.
Then we would go into the locked safe that is hidden in this room.
Really?
Where we would retrieve my father's revolver that he gave me, that he passed down to me. He's still alive, but he wanted me to have it.
I was scared for a second.
No. Well, he is still alive. And we would load that up.
As I was saying, dear listeners, we might talk about this experience, but some of us take it to different levels.
None of this is planned, though.
No, but I know. Here's the thing. I brought it up because I was just like, I saw this pile of CDs. It's the answer to See You Broken, Botch. And I thought, wouldn't it be funny if I had to try to kill zombie Michael Ann with a pile of Northwest hardcore CDs? And you've got like fucking knives and guns within inches of us.
Little do you know.
This is why you have to die. This is why I tell kids all over Eastern Europe to find and kill Dave Larson. And maybe I shouldn't tell them that because you're well armed to defend yourself.
We're not going to get my keys and dig out my safe and pull out my father's old revolver. I'm going to swing this bass.
Yeah, now you've got a bass guitar in your hand, so you're going to take her out.
Makes much more sense,
you're
right?
You're going to take her out like the Doof Warrior in Mad Max. This is going to be tremendous.
Well, of course.
We'll change the scenario. When the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms kicks the door in 30 seconds from now, how will we defend ourselves against them? That's the big question.
We won't. This isn't Oregon. And by the way, the federal government can own land.
Yeah, they can.
Okay, all right.
Man, that's a whole other shenanigans.
Yeah, that's
a whole other deal.
It really is. I'm not going to... Also, I'm not a crazy gun nut. I'm not some gun guy. You see what I do on Facebook? You ever see me getting involved in a gun debate?
Never.
Good reason for that.
Yep, never.
Like, it is... Some people have a whole different way of looking at it.
Yeah, you are a very prolific and interesting Facebook poster. I learn a lot from reading your posts. You make me think about things in new ways, things I normally wouldn't think about.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sometimes I'm wrong.
Well, but that's okay though. You've always got an opinion on, Supreme Court justice, death, or guns.
But what I want is for someone smart, if they think I'm wrong, to tell me why in a way that will make me think maybe they're right.
Okay, so that's the challenge, dear listeners. I think that's an awesome approach to take.
It's very rare.
Well, yeah, because you speak very confidently, and it's intimidating to people.
Usually, if I'm going to put something out there, I've already tried to think of every argument against it. And that's the only reason I feel like putting it up, because I feel strongly. Today I wrote Obama should appoint a Supreme Court justice. He should do a recess appointment.
Tell me what a recess appointment is.
Okay, so Obama has 1 year, as of right now, Obama has just under 1 year left in his term.
Right.
And he was voted in 3 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So it's actually the 4th year of his 4-year term.
Right.
Two 4-year terms, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's not almost over. He's not lame duck like he's just leaving.
Right. He's got a year left.
He has a year left. The Republicans in the Senate, who control the Senate and can control whether or not they're going to vote to confirm a judge that he nominates, have said, we will not vote for his nomination.
Right.
Because we believe that we should have the election, which is going to occur at the end of this year.
Right.
We believe we should have the election and let the new president do it. And then they started pretending that there's precedent for that. And there really isn't.
Okay.
There's certainly not. They said it was common practice. That's not true. Anyway, since these people actually can do this, and by the way, some of the people who are in the Senate who are expressing this opinion are running for president,
right?
On the Republican side.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, they have a political, they can use their power in the Senate to bolster their campaign to get. It all seems like bullshit to me.
Right.
But They have said they will not approve his nominee.
Right.
Even though the Constitution says he can nominate and they should approve him. Approve the justice.
Right.
Or vote them down. And he's got a great list of candidates, some of which have already been unanimously approved by both Republicans and Democrats to the seats that they have now.
Okay.
They would just be moving up to another judge position.
Right.
Supreme Court. So Scalia died one day after the Senate went into recess.
Okay.
The Senate's going into recess for 10 days. Prior to this, when the Republicans control the Senate, instead of going into recess, when they knew that he had appointments that he wanted to make, that they didn't want to allow him, they did this weird thing where they left like one person back in the Senate to do business so that the Senate never went into recess. And then he said, the Senate is in recess. You can't just do this one person thing. So he made recess appointments when the Senate wasn't actually in recess, and his administration lost that case at the Supreme Court. I don't know the name of the case, but I know that did happen.
Okay.
Now, they didn't know Scalia was going to die, and there was no one hanging over their heads for him to appoint, so they went into real recess. And then one day later, this last Saturday, Scalia dies. Now, the Senate comes back into session on the 22nd of February. They have said they will not vote to approve his nominee. He could make a recess appointment before Monday the 22nd, and that justice would serve the rest of this term.
Really?
Yes.
How did you figure that out?
I read a lot about it.
It's amazing. Like the Grammy thing was cool that I emceed tonight. Other than that, I think my greatest achievement of the day was I ate like 3 orders of pad thai. Like that was my big thing today. I ate 2 for lunch at Araya's buffet, and then I went to Tup Tim Thai and got pad thai for dinner because I was super stoked on pad thai. And halfway through the day, I was like, oh, I'm so glad my parents got me that gift certificate for Araya's. And all day I thought about pad thai. And you just basically reframed the judicial system of America for the next year.
Now, I'm not 100% right about stuff. I read this stuff. I believed what I read. It seemed to be coming from good sources. I tried to back it up. I go to like SCOTUS blog. I go to all these different things.
Sure.
I don't just listen to Glenn Beck and believe it, or,
Sure.
So, but here's the thing. So he does that, right?
Uh-huh.
Well, they can still challenge him and sue him, and it could still go to the Supreme Court that he couldn't do that recess appointment. They could impeach him for it.
Okay. So
all of these things would probably be in play. They could say it's just more Obama tyranny,
right?
Whatever.
Of course. That was what I was.
He wants to make us have to have a judge that we all already approved of, and we have stated that it's a political reason that we won't vote for his thing, and he took us at our word and did what he could legally do. See, that's the thing. They're going to do what they can legally do to block him, so he should do what he can legally do to get around that.
Fair enough. That was going to be my question, is the reason that he wouldn't do it because he fears impeachment, or because is there any sort of law or anything that prevents a recess appointment of a Supreme Court judge? That's not like a recess appointment of, a substitute history teacher. This is significant.
It's been done before.
When's it been done before?
In history.
So you're going to cite like in 1832, President Andrew Jackson elected Zachariah Zebediah to the Supreme Court in a recess appointment? Are you really going to pull something like that out of the air?
Hold on a second. All right, we're back in. I'm not going to waste a lot of time. I can't find everything right now that I can find on a quick Google search is about this current situation. So your question was, have presidents in the past done recess appointments of Supreme Court justices? I know that they have. I just don't know when. You're right. It could be 1800 something.
But still, I had no idea. I mean, that's amazing.
I was reading about it. The funny thing is before I put that thing up this morning on Facebook, I did read about an instance. I just can't remember the exact one.
Okay. Well, it's still
But here's the thing, though. It's something that can be done. And when you've got people that won't do the business of the country for politics.
Like when they were going to shut down the government a few years ago.
No, when they did.
When they did shut down the government a few years ago.
One of the front runners for the nomination for Republican for president right now is the jerk that did that. Yeah, anyway. But anyway,
hey, buddy.
So we were talking about zombies.
Yeah, we were.
Speaking of Republicans, let's talk about, worthless, rotting husks of people.
The Walking Dead was the greatest episode in the history of any television.
So
ever.
What was the moment in the new episode that did it for you emotionally? What was the best emotional moment?
I think
worst emotional moment?
Okay, I think that there were a couple. Can I answer with a couple?
Yeah.
I think that blowing up the biker gang at the beginning was such a shock. I went like, what the hell just happened? Like, I thought for a second that The Walking Dead was playing a trick on us and they were going to cut to a commercial and say, just kidding, here's the real start of the episode, because it was so intense and so like just so intense to open an episode like that, because we're expecting a character to die and instead it's like, no.
We think one of our main characters is going to die. I kept thinking a bullet was going to hit the guy who was pointing the gun at them, because the way they were doing it is I feel like they were misdirecting us in other ways. No one expected total destruction of a rocket hitting him and blowing him to pieces.
And what I was bummed about, as he's, saying, the biker gang leader is like, we're going to, have you take us back to where you hang your hat and all this stuff. I'm like, here we go. It's like Terminus on wheels. Basically.
Here we go again.
Here we go again.
I was thinking I am going to hate this storyline.
This season. The whole season.
And then they just blew
everyone
that
to pieces.
Fear out of the water.
Everyone got blown to pieces. Okay, so that was a moment where I was like, what's happening?
And let's also just say, like, Daryl being such an amazing character, did he cut you? And what was Daryl's answer? A little.
A little. Exactly.
Awesome.
Okay, so I think the moment that did it for me was seeing the scared little boy who closed out mid-season a couple months back, succumbing, like just getting eaten, right? That to me, when the episode opened, I was hoping to be still in the state of terror I was in as the little boy at the mid-season break was going, mommy. I spent the last few months going, what's going to happen? And they went away from that, and I
tricked you into thinking he pulled it together,
right? And I was bummed. And then they blow up the biker gang, and I'm like, oh man, all bets are off now. All bets are off. And then the little kid has this freak out because he remembers Carol saying the monsters are going to come and they're going to kill you and they're going to eat you. And he has this freak out. And I was like, oh my God, if the kid pulls it together in the midst of the freak out and finds his inner strength, and it's going to be this heartwarming tale of who gives a shit. But instead he gets his face torn off, and I'm like, oh my God.
Not only that, if you go back and listen to what Carol told him, she predicted what was going to happen.
Exactly what happened.
She told that kid how he was going to be killed by zombies.
It was unbelievable that it actually happened. And then his mom as well. I'm just like, and then Carl with the bullet in the eye. I'm just like, what is happening?
Yeah, Carl catches a bullet in the eye, which a lot of people were waiting for because they read the comics.
Okay, see, and the thing is, I've not read the comics intentionally. I did the same thing.
I haven't read the comics. I just keep hearing people say what's supposed to happen because of the comics.
Yeah, and I did the same thing with Lord of the Rings because I'd never read Lord of the Rings. I just waited each year. I wouldn't have any conversations about Lord of the Rings. I just wanted to be kind of swept away into the fantasy of it all. But yeah, so, Carl catches the bullet in the eye, and it just... At that point, all bets are off. So, Rick going crazy, hacking away at zombies.
So this is the part where I started to feel a swelling. Like, I'm sitting on the couch talking to a TV show with Michael Ann sitting next to me on the couch, right? And it's so Rick, the main character on the show, basically, and the father of the kid who gets shot in the eye, they take the kid to the infirmary. The whole town is full of zombies. He basically goes out by himself with an axe into a sea of like 1,000 zombies where he can't possibly survive, just to have a mad, crazy, I'm going to kill as many things as I can. And all these other people are in the safety of houses looking out, and they all basically just kind of look at each other and go, we gotta go.
This is the moment.
They feel like it's certain death. But as they like open the doors and go out, other people are watching and they're like, I have to act. I've got to do something. And I was like, because that's what you do. And my client's like, what's wrong with you? I'm like, because I'm feeling like, I'm looking around thinking like, am I going to go out? But no, I'm watching a TV show. This isn't real.
My friend.
These are actors who had lunch after they filmed this scene.
My friend in Reno, Nevada said that he and his wife were watching the show, screaming at the television, and that their dogs were like, what the hell, humans? What are you doing? What is this?
Yes.
That's how I felt. I honestly had my hands clutched in front of my chest while watching. I had my laptop in my lap, lying in bed at, 1 a.m. last night, watching this thing. And it ended, and I just looked around in the dark. Like, now what do I do? I can't sleep. I can't stay awake.
Now I need to go online and talk to people about The Walking Dead.
I had no idea what to do. I had no idea what to do with myself. Oh my gosh. Like, and I wonder, like, my question now is like, okay, so where does the story go from here? Do they rebuild this town?
All right,
like,
this is where I hate the show.
Okay. Why?
So, because the things that we learn about the dead from the very beginning, okay? It is the ultimate what would you do, okay? So here are the things that you do, and you should have already done. One, I would think that with the amount of time that society has fallen to The Walking Dead, they would have already learned that zombies walk towards bright lights and fire.
Okay.
Therefore, large fires or the ability to light large fires would be standard practice for any civilization or village or group that was trying to stay alive.
Fair enough.
So being able in multiple different ways to light a big signal that would move things in that direction so that you could at the very least escape should have already been the case. Also, those walls being as fragile as they are, there shouldn't have been anything standing, tree or structure, that could fall on those walls.
Okay.
At all.
There
should also be a ditch on the other side of the wall prior to the wall so that you don't even, it's not like they can come right up against the wall. They're going to go into a ditch first. All of this stuff, it's not like they don't have time. There's nothing else to do.
Okay, so hold on. So the ditch on the other side of the wall, I get there should be a ditch, right? There should also
10
be
10 feet back or something.
Angry women and men with clubs clubbing things. There should be all these different things.
No, you should never walk past a zombie and leave it alive.
Okay.
It should be the duty of every living person to kill every zombie they encounter.
Okay, you're hedging on Larsonian lunacy, so let's reel it in. Reel it in. The characters of the show that we've been watching have been running for their lives.
Yes.
The group has been broken up. They've been worried about their friends. They haven't had all the time in the world to do the things you say.
Right.
That said, the show every once in a while does do things that make me go, wait a minute, if they know that, then why didn't they know that all along? But I have to suspend my disbelief. It's kind of like, I mentioned Romeo and Juliet before. You don't go see Romeo and Juliet and the whole time sit there and go, this is stupid. These aren't real people. These are actors. You have to suspend your disbelief so you enjoy it.
And the show isn't about people succeeding.
Right. It's about people trying to survive in the midst of a zombie apocalypse that they don't quite understand. I mean, the show
I don't think the show would be as good if they always made all the right choices and everything worked and zombies weren't a problem.
Exactly.
That's where the fantasy of what would I do conflicts with what you're watching.
You would be a great manager in the midst of a zombie apocalypse. You'd be really, really good.
Come with me.
I believe me, if Michael Ann comes through the door right now, I'm going to sit back and let you open the ammo box and take care of her.
That's going to take too long.
I'll just be sitting here reading botch, CD liner notes and just let you just hack away.
I don't want to cut up Michael Ann.
Well, hopefully it won't come to that. Hopefully
all right.
It comes out.
Well, I hope, yeah. I expect that she'll escape with me. We'll go into the mountains.
I'm excited about where I live. The loft where I live, I feel very comfortable that it would be a great place to be in the midst of a zombie apocalypse.
It's temporary, but you got to get out. You got to get out of the
city.
Yes,
out of the city.
You've got to go. And I feel like you have to go up. I feel like you have to go up a mountain.
Okay,
that's my take on it.
That's it. Top of
Greg,
Alpental.
Can you survive in the wild?
I would have a hard time surviving in the wild because there's a definitive lack of pad thai.
But you know what? You could be a vegan even.
Yeah,
it'd be harder for you to do a lot of gathering.
Yeah,
but you can. I've been reading a book on survivalism.
Of course you have, Dave.
We got it for Christmas in case we ever had to run for the mountains.
Of course you did.
Your
father gave it to you.
No, I bought it off eBay for my client.
Oh, great.
So she can survive with me.
All right.
Because I realized that while I know how to do a lot of stuff, like I don't actually know the process for like making fire if you don't have matches.
Yeah, it's not easy to do, I would assume.
Other things that there's just a lot of stuff. Like what are all the little details? Like
how to find water, how to purify water, how to find shelter and make shelter.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. What plants do I know for sure I can eat?
Right.
Right.
So this is the funny stuff, or is this the serious stuff?
Well, we were talking about Walking Dead.
Okay.
So, yeah, but that's just funny. Well, because I hope that I'm never going to have to use that stuff, right? But when you hear that there could be a 600,000-year earthquake that will devastate everything west of I-5, you realize that there are no services that will be able to help you.
I get
No
that.
one's coming to help if the entire West Coast is destroyed. You've got to walk out yourself.
I live in the industrial area in Seattle. It will liquefy. Everything will liquefy in the case of a major earthquake. It's all going to just be in the water, done. Destroyed. It's basically an entire vast neighborhood built on old sawdust, and it's over. It's going to be over. So I think about that too.
But so you wake up on top of it. Now what?
Walk east of I-5.
Yeah.
and then look for any standing Thai restaurant.
Good luck getting across that lake. You need to get a boat.
Okay, so I swim to the east side of I-5, look for a Thai restaurant in vain, and then head to the top of Alpentop.
Okay, so your survivalism plan does include
one last meal.
One last meal.
One last meal.
Just pad thai.
That's it. That's what I like. No egg.
No egg.
Excuse me. No egg. There are no eggs because there are no more factory farms. So I'll have vegan pad thai, and they'll be so thankful to serve it to me, and I'll live just an extra few hours. Always with the crazy stuff with Dave Larson.
True, but it's real. I mean, as real as fake is.
Yeah.
Forever.
And I can't wait for the next Walking Dead episode. YOLO forever. Walking Dead forever. I honestly can't wait.
So, okay, we're coming up to the end here.
Okay.
I know you've got a little list of things there, and I'm going to ask you to talk about some of those things as we go out. But what other forms of just asinine entertainment that are also important to you do you consume?
House of Cards. Love it. I've watched every episode.
Watched a bit of it.
Okay. Loved it.
I should have watched more of it. I just haven't had time.
Just started watching Game of Thrones, and I'm enjoying it, I think.
How far are you into it?
Season 1, episode 4. Very beginning.
Yeah, you got to get further.
Okay. Deadpool was one of the greatest movies I've ever seen.
Haven't seen it yet. I'll be seeing it on Saturday and then doing an episode of The Token Asian about it.
Fantastic. Also loved The Revenant. I thought it was riveting and incredible. And The Big Short was amazing. So
I've heard that,
yeah. I love seeing movies. I love it.
But there's no other TV shows?
No, because, I'm watching everything, just whenever I can. So, I put aside times definitely for The Walking Dead.
Greg, have you tried The Venture Brothers?
The Venture Brothers?
You said that like you don't know what I'm talking about.
I don't know what you're talking about. I don't. Your smile right now can't be seen by listeners, but it's frightening.
The Venture Brothers is a source of joy for me that is hard for me to explain to people and to share.
Now, there are many things that are sources of joy for you that I'm not interested in slightest.
And I feel like there might be some stuff in there that you would like.
Can I watch the first episode and see how it goes, or do I need to watch the first season kind of thing? Like, for example,
it does change. It's important to get to understand what the deal is with it.
Yep. I was going to use the example of Breaking Bad that I obviously saw every episode of Breaking Bad. But the first season, after halfway through the first season, I was like, I guess. And then all of a sudden it just kicked in for me somehow. So I was wondering
Imagine
if it's like
that the world of Johnny Quest was real.
Okay.
And the world of super scientists and super villains was real.
Okay.
And that in order to manage all this stuff, they created these massive bureaucracies that controlled the way that this stuff could be handled. So it exists in the real world.
Okay.
Everything's normal in the world, except there are masked, costumed supervillains trying to kill heroes and super scientists. And it's controlled by, there's a thing called the Guild of Calamitous Intent, and there's a huge rule book, and it's the things you're allowed to do to your arch enemy. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Within this world, you've got the main character, Dr. Venture. He was a Johnny Quest type kid.
Mm-hmm.
He had none of the talent or ability of his father. His father's dead. He basically lives on this compound that was built off of the genius of his father, which he has none of. He's a total failure, drug addict with 2 total loser kids, basically living in this world, except he also has an archenemy who's trying to kill him all the time. And then every comic, cartoon, and pop culture reference that you ever loved, if you ever loved any of them, basically comes into play in this story over the seasons. And it becomes this complicated web where you actually begin to care about characters.
Okay, you've pitched it well. I'd consider watching a few episodes and seeing how it goes.
I love it.
Okay.
And it just came back on too. So
okay.
It's a very fun show.
Cool. I like
it's fun, but there was a whole episode a week ago where they used the red ball from the Please Please Tell Me Now Duran Duran video.
Uh-huh.
The actual red ball gets stolen by a supervillain.
Okay.
But he claims he's going to send it back in time and destroy it so that the video never happens, and then creates a scenario of what the world will look like if the new romantic movement had never happened.
This is interesting. Okay, this is fun.
And so his evil plan has to be stopped. And the guy who stops him is I saved the world because he's got the red ball.
Got it.
That's the kind of thing. That's just scratching the surface of what they do in this show.
All right. I'll watch some episodes.
It's so goofy. I love it. And it's one of those things where I'll be watching it and Michael and I will just be shaking our head like, what is this?
I'm sure there's many, many such moments.
There are. Now you, getting off of my garbage, you have a list of things I see. Did we not talk about some of those?
Yeah, we didn't talk about some of them. It was a list of things that, if we were stuck for nothing to say, that has never happened in 25 years of our friendship, that, this was going to be the night where we just stared at each other drooling, going, ugh, we have no idea what to say to one another. I was going to talk about a few different things. But instead, we had lots to talk about.
Well, what on there would you like to touch on? So let's just say that for some reason, someone who has no idea who you are or what you do, just listen to this episode for the first time to figure you out. Go ahead and talk about some of the things that you do so people can...
I'm a juggler. Okay, so I'm co-leading a trip to Rwanda and Uganda in 3 weeks for high school students with my friend Dave and my friend Veronica. And we're going to explore the history of Rwanda and their genocide and Uganda and their dictatorship and try to understand why it is that Rwanda and Uganda are some of the shining stars of Africa in terms of development. So we're bringing high school students over there with one of our principal questions being, one of the principal questions is, how does society continue after 800,000 people hack each other to death with machetes? How do you continue in society? So we're going to explore a bunch of restorative justice models. For example, a village that we've heard about that we're going to visit where genocidaires, who are the ones who committed genocide, live in the village with either victims, wounded surviving victims of theirs, or family members of their victims. They live together in this village. It's not prison, but everyone stays. And it's a situation, as far as we can tell, that's like, good morning, Dave. It's wonderful to see you. I'm so sorry that I hacked Michael Ann to death with a machete, but it's wonderful to see you. Would you like some coffee? So we're going to explore, how is that a thing? Okay, the other question we're going to ask is, given that Rwanda and Uganda are developmental shining stars, as I said, in Africa, they're both one is run by an absolute dictator, and the other is run, in Rwanda by Paul Kagame, who is dictator-like. Do we need a dictator after upheaval in order to get us back on track? And that's a very intimidating and very scary question. So we're going to look at those things. So that's under the banner of the Legacy Project, and people can see thelegacyproject.com for more on where we're going to go. We're going to update it and post things and whatnot. So that was that's coming up. Dave, my friend, and I have run these Legacy Project trips a bunch of times over the years. So we're going to update the website with historical information on the trips we've done. And we're thinking about starting a podcast where we interview people who have either gone on the trips with us or people we've encountered, and try to interview them and, use some of the audio and video footage that we've recorded on these trips of people who we've talked to kind of put in perspective, how do people survive in places that we've gone, where we explored Nazism in Poland, or we explored apartheid in South Africa. We explored the effect of Operation Condor, where the United States tried to put dictatorships in all of South and Latin America, South and Central American countries. How do you survive when your country has been basically taken over by the United States and a dictator put in place, and your family disappeared because you were leftists, or dissidents or artists or poets for that matter? How do you survive, and how do you continue once the dictatorship goes away and you're walking down the street where your father disappeared?
That's interesting. I mean, especially looking at the field of Republican candidates this year. Okay.
Well, I'm with you. So, I mean, the question that we're asking, is like, do we need that authoritarian crazy figure, that authoritarian strong arm in order to put us in line? It's a fascinating question.
So you might come back as a Trump supporter.
Very slim chance. Very, very, very slim chance. But there's a chance.
No. So you're saying there's a chance.
There's a chance. Very slim chance. Okay, so also on the list, I didn't think I talked about this last time because we were deep in contracting, but I've been asked to write the biography of Ernest Becker.
You mentioned that it might happen.
Okay. We were further along than might, but I didn't want to say that. But we are in the final stages. Like literally, I'm waiting for the email back that says, a year worth of negotiation has come down to this. Here's the contract that I've already approved of. Sign, go. So I'm going to spend the next couple of years writing a book on the life of cultural anthropologist Ernest Becker, who talked a lot about death denial and how that affects our psyche. So I'm going to be traveling around talking to his family members, his colleagues. I've already started doing that, like old friends of his, people that he knew over the years, and try to piece together the man's life for a biography project. It's going to wrap my head in knots, but I'm pretty excited about it.
That's exciting.
Yeah, and I'm starting to write concepts and ideas for the Between Earth and Sky LP. There's evidently 12 demos for really good songs that the guys have written. They're all Canadian, so they practice in Canada, and I haven't heard any of the songs yet, but they keep telling me these are our best songs, and I'm very excited. So I want to put together concepts for an album, and it's now that Trial has I don't want to say run its course, but this indefinite hiatus. I don't even know what we're calling it, or maybe it's just that the band is done. Not sure. We haven't talked about it or anything, but Between Earth and Sky is where my focus is, and I'm really excited about that because hardcore is awesome, and I love it, and I love the expression that comes from listeners to listeners. All the dynamics involved just makes me very happy and excited. So I'm just so glad that we've got this LP project coming along. So those are a couple things on the list. I also really want to write about Trial. I want to, meaning the ideas in it and the experiences that I had, which are very potent. So I've been wanting to write a book about Are These Our Lives, and kind of go line by line and why was the album written? And so it's not just like, oh, I'm self-important enough that I'm going to write a book about myself. More like I want to write about why each line was written then and what's the application to the idea now, and kind of make it relevant to now, so that readers don't just go, oh, I learned about Trial, who gives a crap, but rather like, oh, I've learned about the world and maybe a new perspective on the world by way of lyrics screamed by miscreant crazy people all around the planet. So yeah, those are things I'm working on and thinking about.
Fantastic, man.
Dude, I'm so proud of you for your podcast. I love your podcast. I do. I'm excited about it. I'm excited that what started out as just I want to talk to my friends who I've known for a long time. And the idea of I've known you too long is a cool idea.
What started out as that is still that?
Is still that. And it's more. Because, people have said to me things like, I learned so much about the history of ... Pacific Northwest, the history of hardcore, the history of these emo bands, or the history of this whole genre of music. And it's pretty remarkable. I think it's just really cool that you've stuck to it and done it all year long. I'm just excited about it.
Well, thank you. I'm getting a lot out of it, and I hope that's my thing, is that since I know a lot of that history, sometimes I hear new things that I don't know about. I'm always interested in what about those people's lives and where the common experiences are. So I always hope that's what people will find interesting, but I think that's just what I'm finding interesting. But
it's great. Who's somebody that you want to have on the podcast who you've not had yet? At one point it was John, and John Pettibone has been on the podcast. So who would you want to have on that you haven't gotten on yet? And in talking about that person right now, whoever it might be.
Do I have to name them so they're embarrassed?
You don't have to name them, but my thought was that in talking about them, we would kind of gently pressure them to come on your podcast. So yes, name them.
John White.
Why hasn't John White been on your podcast?
No, we've talked about it. We just haven't been able to get it together.
Okay.
That's a real cop-out because it's literally going
He's ready to say yes.
I suppose. Yeah.
Okay. I hope he does. It'd be great to listen
Derek
to.
Harn.
Why hasn't Derek Harn done your podcast?
I don't know. He's involved with the website.
Okay. These are easy.
But he hasn't done the podcast, though.
These are proverbial low-hanging fruit.
Okay, so here's the problem, though. Here's the problem, though. These are all people I know.
Okay.
So it's not like I really wish I could get... I mean, if we're talking about, who would be a dream get, who I did meet within in that time frame, but would be, someone like Ian MacKaye.
Okay.
And I wouldn't ask about, when you loan someone a pen, you should hold on to the cap so you get it back, or any of the stuff that you hear. I'd want to know about like grade school. All the same shit I want to know about,
Right.
That would be phenomenal. When's that gonna, how's that ever gonna happen?
It'd be tricky, but he might do it if he can.
Oh, how about this? How about just a knockdown, drag out combination background and political fight with Dave Smalley?
Why wouldn't, okay, are the parameters of your
someone
podcast...
who might be able to beat the shit out of me
okay.
with political theory.
Yeah, and that's my question. Are the parameters of your podcast that it has to be recorded here?
No, I can go on the road.
You go on the road?
Yeah.
I bet Smalley would do it. I bet he would do it.
I don't know him.
That can be arranged. I think it'd be really cool to have
I didn't
Dave Smalley.
meet him.
So it would be, I haven't known you too long forever.
I can make, when you listen to someone that much when you're a teenager, maybe that counts. I don't know.
Okay, so that's the goal. Let's get Dave Smalley on your podcast, and then come up with a dream list and start talking about it more.
I feel like that would have to be a whole different podcast, though, because that could have the opportunity to get a little bit heated. I don't do a lot of contradicting people on here. Okay. That's not really what it's about.
Yeah.
I
haven't liked you too long.
You built so originally it was going to be, you thought my next podcast would be let me massage you
I'm still waiting for it. That's why I showed up here tonight.
You thought
this talking for an hour and 20 minutes is bullshit. I'm waiting for the massage. Let me massage you with Dave Larson.
Still, yes. Well, I think it was you were going to do it.
Oh.
You were going to do the podcast.
I was going to do so I was going to be massaging you.
But this is uncomfortable.
Says the guy with the gun and the knife to his right and left.
Well, you did see a knife, but you didn't see a gun.
Yeah. Okay, you're right. You mentioned that there's
somewhere
a safe
packed away. There is a very safe and not used. It's not like I am a gun guy. I'm not carrying a gun. I'm not open carry guy.
Okay.
But no, there's been some talk with some people about starting a political conversation podcast.
Wow.
And I really want to do it.
Yeah, you'd be good at it.
Thank you. I kind of want someone else to be the main driving force behind it and then just be involved in it.
I think you'd be good at it. I think you should be the main driving force. I think you'd be really good at it.
How many podcasts am I going to do?
This one and that one. 2.
Well, you don't want me to do the Tokenation anymore?
No, but I do want you to let me massage you.
You're aware that we're recording our 8th episode
of
the Tokenation?
I know.
Listen, have you spent any time with it, Greg?
I've spent precious little time with it.
Oh. Do you don't like the premise?
It's fantastic.
You're lying.
I'm just dreaming of let me massage you. That's all I can think about right now.
Okay, because I was going to ask if you'd like to be a guest one day with me and Matt.
I would do it.
I'm sorry, with Matt and I.
With Matt and me. With Matt and me. Yes, I would be a guest on the Tokenation. I'm terrified of the prospect, but since you've challenged me in this public forum, yes. You've thrown down the gauntlet.
We're going to have to do it pretty soon then.
Okay.
Well, wait, you loved Deadpool.
I loved it.
What are you doing Saturday? We're going to go watch it. We're going to have the whole episode about it. You want to come?
I think I might do that.
You want to come discuss Deadpool with me and Matt?
I think that's a great idea.
All right, just be ready for us to talk about 100 other things at the same time.
I'm not surprised.
All right, cool.
Okay.
Greg, thanks for coming out, brother.
Thanks so much, man. I loved it. Appreciate it. Love you, buddy.
Okay. We went some places with that one. I hope you all enjoyed that. I thought that was a great way to cap off year 1. Always enjoy having Greg around. And, I think we're going to be hearing more from Greg. This will hopefully become a bit of a regular thing. Maybe, once or twice a year have him check in, update us, because he always has, as you can tell, if you listen today, he always has a lot going on. A couple of corrections that we got to do. I could not remember the name of the creator of The Walking Dead, which is dumb. It's Robert Kirkman. I think I said Robert when we were in there, but it wouldn't come right off the top of my head. But yes, Robert Kirkman is the creator of the comic series The Walking Dead, and therefore is the creator of the television show The Walking Dead. And he is directly involved with the show. So there is that. When we were talking about recess appointments, and I could not come up with the example, and Greg asked if I was jumping back to the 1800s for the example. No. I could not remember the exact details, and I didn't want to... I talked enough out my ass as it is. So here's what it was. Justice William Brennan. With the Senate out of session in October of 1956, he was recess appointed by Dwight Eisenhower weeks before the election of that year. He nominated him to a full term, and the Senate actually confirmed him the following year. So this was a guy who did get a recess appointment and who was confirmed. This can happen. However, all of this is a moot point now because the Senate has come back into session since we recorded, and Obama did not make a recess appointment, and they have stated they will not have hearings on his nominee. So where we sit right now in this first week of the Senate back in, they aren't going to consider it. These are the people we're dealing with in our government. Now, if the shoe was on the other foot, if there was 1 year left in the Republican president's term and it was a Democrat-controlled Senate, they'd be being hypocrites by not having his nominee. And I'll tell you right now, if years from now, someone who listens to this podcast hears me making the point that I don't think that a Republican president, if we ever have one again, should be allowed to nominate a Supreme Court justice with 1 year left in their term, come back, grab my words, and shove them down my throat. Okay, well, that's it for politics. I just did this whole thing, this rant. I may cut it out and you won't even hear it. All right, I'll see you guys next time.
This podcast is a product of the Nobody's Knows Podcast Network. Executive producers David R. Larson and K. Drake Streetman. Music for this episode provided by Polymorph from the record Artifacts, Demos, and Debris.